Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Camp Conversations, the podcast where we share stories of resilience to inspire one another and to steal some tips and tricks from each other through our own professional experiences and personal experiences. I'm really grateful today to have Karley Cunningham with us. She is a keynote speaker. She is the creator of the Surefire Method, and she is an author because her manuscript just came out, and I personally am so excited to read it. She's posting some teasers on LinkedIn that I am going to ask her about today to dive in a little bit more. So welcome, Karley. Thank you for being on. And just to start off, tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe your background, so that our audience can know you both professionally and maybe a tiny bit personally.
That opens a whole can of worms, my background. But no, it's all good. It's all good. But thank you for having me here. I was so excited when I saw your email and said, "Hey, I want to have a conversation about resilience with you." So I think what I'll do my best to do is weave resilience through my background. So I work with founders in business, and by founders, I'm referring to people who have or have had a vision to start a business to solve a problem. That could be for the people in their industry, that could be for the people in their community that they are hiring within their business, or that could be a bigger world problem, as big as a wicked problem in the world. And I love working with them because they're driven by an internal drive to create a difference. So they're impact and purpose driven. And the impact piece, I think, comes from my background in sport. And I have been in sport my whole life. And so I feel like resilience is a thing that was built into me throughout the course of my athletic career, if you will. I started figure skating at a very young age, and I was selected at the age of, I believe it was 7, to be trained to be one of the next top pairs figure skaters in Canada with one of the top clubs in the world. So, if we're comparing it, if you think of the Russian sports training programs, the Chinese sports training programs, our program was built off of that rigor and that structure. And so, that, if you will, interfered with some of my ability to build strong relationships in school and be included, because I was often out of school to go and train. I was at the rink early in the morning, showing up late to school in grade school. I was being pulled out of classes earlier. I wasn't there because I was at competitions and traveling without my parents at the age of 9. I was on what would be the equivalent of big stages from the age of 6 in front of crowds of hundreds of people. And so, as you can imagine, the complexities as a young kid of stage fright, of structured training, I was doing weightlifting when I was 9, 10, 11. And so
Wow.
building resilience in my own body. So I as much as I would have loved to continue with that career at the age of 12, I looked around and all I was seeing was these other kids, whether they be my age or, university age, who weren't getting as much of an education as their peers, because they were traveling and they were, getting a different education. But that education equated to, well, whenever I retire from the sport, however far I make it, what are my choices? Becoming a coach or a choreographer. So I'll spend the rest of my life in arenas. And so I opted out. And then I started horseback
At
riding. I
12.
got at 12. Yeah. I mean, when you say people are old souls, I think that is a part of something that I was gifted because I was 12 and I went, this is not for me. Um, and that was a conscious choice. It's something that I had committed to for that long. When you're 12 years old, it was over half my life, right?
Yeah.
And I had this opportunity. Who doesn't want to be one of the next best in the world? I mean, there are lots of people who are probably like, no, thank you. But as a raging extrovert, that's pretty appealing. And then I went into horseback riding and I quickly again got into competition. And I think part of what drove that was my desire to perform, to win, to learn and be really great at something. I got into dressage, which is very structured. It has a pattern,
But
and
like the
so
dancing kind of.
the kind of the dancing horse, the horse and rider become well, funny. I've never drawn this parallel, but pairs figure skating, you become a pair
A
with your
pair.
horse, right? And you need to understand each other. So that collaboration. Um, and then that just became inaccessible for family, like monetary reasons. Plus, I wanted to go to school. And then post college, which I went to school for graphic design and advertising, I got into mountain biking. Funny way I got there. So I bought a truck. I needed a toy for the back, and bikes were one of the toys. And then I again fell into structured training, competition. And so someone else, as I know, who understands ADHD, which I've been finally diagnosed with at 50, what kept me on the rails was the structure of all of those sports.
Mm.
And so I think resilience for me was the structure of this is what we do, this is how we train, this is how we show up, and these things produce results. And I've learned that in my professional career that if there is not a structure, I will create one because I need it. Otherwise, I spin off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then post retiring, burning out from adrenal fatigue, in my mountain biking career, I made it to pro elite. I was ranked top within the top 40 in Canada, moved west out here to improve my Canadian standing. And my body went, nope, no more. Because that piece, which I think will resonate with some of your audience, especially the athletic women, which you said are tend to be underrepresented. For the longest time, we've been trained like small men. Well, our bodies
Mm-hmm.
require something different. So my body was always building up resilience and or resistant to what I was putting it through. So I burnt out, but I've continued to do trail running and mountain biking as things that I love to do, but still require structure if I want to be able to do them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me
Yeah.
in a not nutshell.
No, I mean, in a beautiful trail of resilience. And it's neat because I think you perfectly segued me to talk or to ask you a little bit more about that surefire method in your manuscript, because I saw one thing that you shared recently, and it ties so nicely to this piece. You're bringing in, you said resilience is structure, but I
Mhm.
also see in so many of your examples and where you're moving professionally, resilience to you is also the team
Yeah,
around you. And it's
yeah.
so neat that that started like the pairs figure skating, partnering with the
Hmm.
animal. Then ironic a little bit that you burnt out in the individual sport.
Yeah,
And then now
yeah,
with the business piece, I saw as you post your manuscript, you're like, all right, cheer, like let's cheer together. I need some
yeah,
allies in this. So
yeah, absolutely. And that was intentionally built. I built a community around my book and still continue to build it. And I call y'all my cheering squad
mm-hmm.
because you can't you can't do it without a cheering squad. I know as a kid I couldn't have done it without my parents and my family in the stands at the major competitions or on the hard training days, knowing that my mom was sitting freezing her fingertips off knitting while she was waiting for me
Oh.
to be done practice. Like bless my parents for doing all they did to put me through that in a positive and enforced way and structured way. It was, I think it's such a great way for a kid to grow up. Um, but again, through to mountain biking, the biggest high for me was being on a course coming into a section with a big crowd and hearing
Mm-hmm.
my name and hearing my team name called as I come through that, because the sport itself is lonely. You're either chasing someone or being chased. You're not in a pack in mountain biking. It's not like road riding, and you're on your own. Often on the hot climbs in the summer, going, why am I actually doing this? So knowing that there's people there to help you get across the line. So I built that in as I've been writing the book and thanking people in those celebratory moments for like, hey, I finished the manuscript, but let's all celebrate because I couldn't have done it without you.
Mm-hmm. And I think this aligns perfectly. We were talking before about how when we read that description of resilience, because so many words can mean different things to each of
Hmm.
us. And I find so often resilience is put out there as if it's exposure to risk and really building up that thick skin based on what our exposure is.
Hmm.
And as someone that also dealt with athletic burnout, with professional burnout, all of those things. I don't agree with that definition of it. And I like how you brought in that piece of, in athletics, we were trained like we were small men, and then realized we need these adaptations, or we need to be treated as the individual. We really have to be built up from within to be able to deal with that outside adversity. And
we need to be built up from within our natural core, what is inherently natural to us. And I'm sure a lot of the women who are athletes in this community and in hearing this is, yeah, we were trained like small men. So just throw the same program at them. Let's not take into consideration their menstrual cycles and hormones, because they don't matter, do they?
No.
No. And
No.
I mean, no fault of our coaches, because the research was done on them, because that's who was accessible. Accessible for the research. So it's this really hard thing to attain, is the research on women.
Yeah. And I mean, the interesting part is now I speak to peers that are in the athletic world, and it is very normal to speak about cycles and to have that information shared with their coaches, etc. And then I speak with peers that are in caregiving roles or speaking roles or collaborative roles. And I share, I track my cycle, and I know when I am more comfortable, or when it aligns better with my body to speak publicly, when it aligns better to have small conversations. And I 90% of the time get this really funny look, like, what?
Oh yeah. I remember reading an article I wish it was you that had read it or written it, because I probably we would have met sooner. But she was saying the exact same thing, and I was like, mind blown. But I was already it was already very late in peri into menopause. I was like, well, that would have been helpful to know 20 years ago.
Yeah, it would have made sense. Yeah. And it's so funny that it's taking us so long to just recognize this.
Yeah, 100%.
So going back to this, building resilience and filling ourselves up. And sometimes that's filling ourselves up emotionally. Sometimes that's with knowledge, sometimes information. You were sharing with me the story of doing the Grand Canyon. And again, it wasn't a thing, an unknown risk that you just exposed yourself to.
No.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I need things that scare the bejesus out of me to get my butt away from the work this work. Taking clients through the Surefire method. I need something scary enough to convince me to go do structured training. Otherwise, I just won't do it. And so how the Grand Canyon started was that my wife was ultra running at the time. Her goal was to do 10 50K races by the time she was 50. Right. And so the Grand Canyon came onto her radar, and she's like, I want to go do that. And she wanted to do rim to rim to rim. And knowing the distance of that, which is, I think I'll say around ish 80 kilometers, she wanted to do it in a day. So it wasn't a day, it wasn't a couple day hike, which is what most people do. I mean, they don't even advise that you do the Grand Canyon from rim to river to rim. And the river is about the halfway point. So I knew there was no way I was doing that distance. I never trained for it. I wasn't cut out for it. I didn't want to do the work. So I said, well, what can I do to support you and also enjoy the adventure of the trip? So I had done rim to river to rim with her once before as a casual. I'm going to say casual.
Casual for you.
This woman is nuts. I'd done it with her, and I said, well, I'll go down to Phantom Ranch, which is just on the other side of the Colorado River. I'll wave to you and say, please don't die. And I'm not being facetious or funny here, legit. I'll see you when you come back up the rim. I'm going to head back up on my own. So half of it was done solo and supported, and half of it was done with two other runners, being my wife and her trip partner. And so that was enough to scare me off my butt to go training. And if we tie this back to resilience, in my book, I talk about certainty and certitude. So I'm going to back up a little bit. We have, as a society, collapsed those two words. And how I got onto that is my method for helping companies essentially build resilience and build confidence and build their core, the foundation of what they need to build off of. Is my method is called the Surefire method, which is a synonym for certainty. I was in a workshop webinar, somebody said certainty. I went, oh my gosh, that's what I provide. I went down the rabbit hole, and I'm a word nerd. So I went, what other words are there for this? And the word certitude came up. I was like, that's interesting. And I went to the etymology of the word and looked it up. And it says it's a synonym, but they're actually yin and yang to each other. They are not the same thing. Certitude is the inner confidence and knowing. Certainty is the outer signals that you're doing something right. So coming into the Grand Canyon, I had all the certainty data that I needed to know what certainty signals were coming back at me or would be coming back at me when I was in that adventure. So how many kilometers am I doing? What calories do I need to be intaking per hour, and approximately how many kilometers can I do an hour? On the descent, that changes on the ascent, two very different speeds. Where are the water taps that are turned on at that time of year? Because I was in for a 8+ hour adventure in temperatures that ranged from, again, certainty signals. You show up at 4 a.m. at the edge of the canyon, everything's dark and it's 4 degrees. So you get your gear. You need to carry that all down into the canyon, which once you hit the base, it comfortably hits about 18. But as soon as you start going back up based on the timing, Fahrenheit, which is
we had a freeze.
signals to me to say, yes, I know I'm the distance I'm supposed to be. Yep, here I am. Okay,
there you go.
Okay,
it's okay. It was cutting sentences so we can chip it together.
Where should I dive back in?
So you were getting the signals. Let me see. As we were, maybe jump back, go right back to
the certainty.
Yes.
Okay. So when I was heading into the canyon, what I knew I would need to know is data points, which would give me certainty signals. So how many kilometers am I running today? How many have I covered? Where is the next water tap? How much water am I carrying? Once I fill up, how much extra water do I need to carry in case the next water tap is turned off? So what I was doing is building the map and the landscape so that I knew that I had external information telling me. That's certainty.
Okay.
Certitude was for me, and for me is making it to the start and knowing that I can do hard things, to borrow the phrase, knowing that I had put in the kilometers, knowing that I understood what I was getting myself into, knowing why I was doing this crazy adventure that most people would not even think of tackling as a recreation. Knowing why, knowing what my vision was. I mean, was I trying to get a fastest known time? Was I trying to break a record? Or I was in it to challenge myself, to see what I could do on a unsupported half solo adventure. I was doing it to prove it to myself. So knowing those things, when the certainty signals start coming back at you to say, yes, you're good, you're not good, you know how to navigate them. You've been there before. Now, the canyon is really difficult to emulate because of the temperature differences, because of, the conditions, the actual physical landscape, but you can still do as much as you can to emulate it and simulate it. So I knew at the point of stepping on the edge of the canyon to the point of getting to over across the Colorado River and waving goodbye to Elise, I knew that I knew how to navigate it. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. So I had
Mm.
built the resilience, if you will, by combining those points of certitude and certainty. And without certitude, I certainly probably would have gotten myself into a lot harder adventure and potentially trouble and potentially a life or death event.
Mm-hmm.
And they could still happen. I remember running into a couple on the way up through a very rocky section. They're saying, "Oh, just careful around the corner is a rattlesnake." And I thought, shit, I don't have a snake bite kit on me. Like that
Mm-hmm.
didn't come in the brochure. But so what do I do? Well, that means I have to be very aware and potentially back off my pace to hope that it moves off the trail.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I've even heard of people where the taps have frozen, which you touch
yeah,
on too.
yeah.
And I have never heard it broken down this way, certainty and certitude. And I love that because now we're tying together these two pieces of exposure. So
Hmm.
exposure is like your lifetime of experiences of those doing hard things and
Hmm.
that preparation piece of gathering all of
Yes.
that information.
Yeah. Well,
What's
and
your
one of them, you can control more of it, right? I can
mm-hmm,
control my thoughts, which control my feelings, which apply to the output. And so by knowing where the internal levers are and knowing your internal self, oh, I'm right now. Okay. And it's that self-observation piece that it gives you to
mm-hmm,
be like, yeah, I'm starting to freak out. Okay. So do I just let myself spiral at midway up the canyon at 90-degree temperatures, or do I stop and take stock of why am I here? What is it that I set out to achieve? What are my values? Like what does this mean to me, whether I finish it in 8.5 or 9.5 hours? Well, it means nothing, so I can stop.
mm-hmm. I think you and I ask a similar question in a different way.
Mhm.
So I'm really curious. Help me understand if this question parallels
Yeah.
with you. I built the camp framework because I had this question rolling around in my brain of why are there people that can really passionately care about something? Whether that's the environment, whether that's how we raise kids, whether that's how we communicate with people. And they passionately care and they do the research, but they seem to hit a freeze state at an action step of bringing that information into the
Mm,
world or interacting with the environment in a way to benefit or whatever that might be. Whatever their passion is, they hit a freeze state before taking the action step on it.
hmm.
And that is my method, or that is the camp method. And then
Okay.
when I hear you talk about it, we're kind of bringing a similar question of what people have these passions and these um, topics that they know will benefit others that they can
Hmm.
found a business on. And
Yeah.
so why is it they get frozen? Am I using the
Hmm.
correct words?
Yeah.
That's a sincere word.
Stuck,
Yeah. Why do
roadblocked,
they get,
scared,
yeah. What
lose
is
their
this?
confidence.
Mm-hmm. And what is
Yeah.
that stopping piece? Have I articulated your question or am I,
No, well, I mean, you've just opened up another avenue for it. I won't go to the question that I sought to answer because it's very removed, but I could plot it back. Um, but
I guess
what's
my,
going on? Well, what I think the underlying question is what are people missing them to take that next step? And I used to describe it as the work that I do builds confidence,
mm-hmm,
that then confidence initiates someone taking the action. Action drives traction, traction drives results, results drives success. The word that needed to be replaced, which I have replaced, is certitude.
mm-hmm,
It's that inner knowing versus the outer, right? And if I tie it back to mountain biking for me and my mountain biking career, my certitude in mountain biking was I do this because I love it and I love the challenge of it. But the external certainty of why people thought I was doing it, oh, well, you want to go to the Olympics. Like, what are you
Hmm.
aiming for? What is the end result? And they just couldn't understand that I did it because I loved it. And so my certitude was, I will take this as far as I can get it. Where I, what's the word I'm looking for? Where it somehow flipped for me was believing that external narrative. Oh,
Hmm.
well, yeah, I guess in order for people to understand it and to support me, I need to tell them I'm aiming for the Olympics.
Mm. Where do you think so? My mom, if she's listening, asks me this question a lot. And she's always like, I don't understand why you and your siblings have the confidence, but when I hear you describe certitude, I think that's what she is
Hmm.
describing, to start something that is unknown to you
Hmm.
and believe in yourself that you can do that. Why do you guys have that confidence that you can just take that step? And
Mm.
so I have an answer for that, but I'm curious, what do you think your answer would be to that question? Because I hear both athletically, but also through being a keynote speaker, through creating the Surefire method, to writing a manuscript. Like you have that certitude. You're now helping bring that into businesses. Where did you get the foundation for that?
I'm gonna hone in on a word that really jumped out at me, which is what I think your mother is saying is she's perceiving it as confidence because those that don't have the desire, don't have the knowing that they have, and the built up resilience to know they can weather it or survive it, aren't going to take that step. But it's seen as confidence. But I think for you and I, it's all about curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I am so driven by people's stories and finding what drives my clients. And then what I've done is built a system that grounds them in that. That is the certitude. Why did you start this? What is your vision? What are your non negotiable core beliefs? And that is, how do we want to make people feel? What is the outcome that we want to achieve? And what are our values, which are non negotiable? Those are the pieces of the first part, which I call the intrinsic pieces, tools of the Surefire method. And then there's the extrinsic pieces, where, if you will, in certitude and certainty, it flips. So I don't think it's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the desire to pursue the unknown, the curiosity. What happens if? And I do that all the time. My wife said to me, well, you're pretty certain you have ADHD. Why do you want a true diagnosis? Why do you want a medical diagnosis? She goes, you aren't going to get a comment the boss of your own thing. I said, because I want to hack it. I want to figure out how to leverage it as my true advantage. And I want to skirt the things that have always been the roadblocks for me. And I want to understand. And what I figured out is I got really good at breaking the rules, but appearing that I wasn't breaking the rules. So to say that differently is somehow I managed to fit into the traditional systems, but I wanted to stop doing that because it caused me so much stress and strain.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was about the curiosity of, ooh, what can I do with this?
Mm. Okay, there's 2 points I want to like throw back there because I
All
think you've
right.
done something amazing. One is fitting fitting into the mold. So many of us can do that, especially by the time we're in this stage of our lives, because we've done it for so long, we have the experience, we understand what people want. And it
Mm-hmm.
is so taxing emotionally, physically,
Mm-hmm.
and does not leave a lot of time for curiosity because you kind of
Yeah.
tap the well, and
Yeah.
it doesn't give you that free thinking time
Mm-hmm.
that often the ADHD brain really loves because it's like, boink,
Oh,
boink, boink,
yeah.
boink, boink, boink. Um, Secondly, I that isn't my answer, but that might be my answer now to my mom, because if I could paraphrase what you said, I'd say this is the biggest takeaway tool for our audience. Curiosity completely extinguishes the risk of failure because there is no failure. Right? Oh, that answer didn't work. Well, what's the new question that I have to ask? Right? And you can just keep exploring because you don't have this fear that you're just not on this one linear direction that the door is going to close. Every time a door closes, new ones kind of pop open. And so,
and what interesting that just was the blinding flash of the obvious for me is the adventures that I choose have no out. It's what are those rooms that people go to and like escape rooms? You know, I mean, okay, there is an out in the canyon, and that is calling for help. That involves a helicopter and a whole team of people that I don't want to be like, I was an idiot. I'm so sorry that you had to leave your emergency room job and you had to use your day off to come save my sorry butt. Right. So, and even in the trail races I chose, I mean, I've done, one of the toughest, one of the most remote trail races, 120K, but I've done it as a part of a relay team. But once you're up at the time at Skyline Trail in Manning Park, there ain't nobody but the birds that's going to hear you yelling for help, right? And if you don't have a spot tracker on you, well, Lord help you. And I say that loosely. I'm atheist. There's going to be some power out there that helps you get through it. And again, it's that internal knowing of how do I get myself through this? How do I fuel myself so I don't start hallucinating and walk off a cliff? So I put myself intentionally in difficult no out situations. So there is failure, but otherwise for me, there's no failure.
And I mean, also have scaffolded those. So you've had that feeling of, oh, I'm moving towards the zone where this no out is really going to impact me. So I maybe need to pull back a little bit, change the pace a little bit, grab some sugar out of my bag, whatever that might be. And so it is a no out. You're right. Like a total failure in one sense, but in another sense, you've created so many curious doors that have helped you scaffold so that when you hit that final point, you're like,
Yeah. I mean, maybe one of the other answers to your mom's question is self-awareness. Like you have to have that internal self-awareness and even the ability to see yourself from the outside, to observe your own thinking and to be able to, like, when I first learned to do that through the practice of yoga, it was fascinating. I'm like, I can watch myself. This is weird, but super cool. What else? And again, what else can I do with this? And I think as an athlete, that is figure skating taught. They had us doing visualization. Okay, like to be on the ice, what it is going to be like, what's going to happen if your music stops and you have to go to the judges halfway through your program, you've lost your flow. Like there's just all these scenarios that build up, again, that knowing of, I visualize this hundreds of times. I know I can do this.
And self-awareness, I completely agree with. You're now making me, I think my mom asked me a deeper question than I realized. Because I think my
yay, mom.
Yeah, good one,
You're
Mom.
like, hold on a minute. That was a trick question, wasn't it? I want to hear the follow-up conversation on this one.
Yeah. She's going to listen to this. Like, why did you talk about this on the podcast? Because my answer actually goes back to your example of your mom knitting while she was sitting in the arenas for you finishing figure skating. And I said, I think it all stems from the unwavering belief that you had in us when we were kids, like me and my siblings, not us as multiple versions of myself, but
that too.
Yeah. And I think that built up such a strong core and belief system in my house, in myself. I was able to steal some of that back from her and from my dad. And then I think knowing that I have such a strong support system around me, I have such a great fallback support system that I know if something goes wrong.
That's a really deep and interesting topic, and knowing that you do some work with kids and the generations of, and ours in our environments were very similar. My parents were like, you want to go ride horses? Okay. You want to go? And we were very privileged.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't, rich. I used to babysit for the rich behind us in these huge houses. So I had that contrast, but I always had that support of, you can be whatever you want to be. I was raised by a father who didn't see gender as a barrier to anything for his girls. He had three girls. And so having that provided for us versus, and here's the piece of it for me, I know to be true, is we also had for it if we wanted it. Right? It wasn't just everything was handed to us, and some people are probably going to resist this, but everybody doesn't get a gold star or a ribbon at the end of the game. And I think that's what's potentially broken resilience for these next following generations, is the helicopter parenting, the, it's okay that, you failed, don't worry about it. No, it's like, if I failed, if I fell off the horse, it was my choice whether I got back on. And I was actually working in the barns at the age of 12 when I started riding, so I could afford more lessons. I would do it in trade. My parents were like, we'll pay for 2 a week. You want more? Go figure out a way to do it. You want to play golf? Great. We'll buy you the membership. That's another sport that I did. I played golf from a young age, and I golfed the junior tour. Right? So yeah, of course I did. Like, just,
you have quite the childhood resume.
Oh, I know, right? It's a little ridiculous now that I'm saying I'm white privileged Yahoo, but to my defense, my parents would be like, "But you got to get yourself to the golf course." So I'd have to ride my 10 speed out to the golf course, right? So there was always that element of, you have to put skin in the game too, and you have to make that goal happen. We can't make it happen for you, and I just don't see a lot of kids being parented that way these days. I mean, I'm a non-parent, so throw the hate at me, throw the shade at me. Speak to my own experience of, they would support it to an extent. The rest was up to me.
Yes. And I think if I could paraphrase that back to you, that a skill set that I think, again, is another perfect one for our audience to take away, is that ability to sit in discomfort. And now I think when we talk about our adult stories, when we connect on a few, like around sport, around business, like we chase that discomfort because we're like, oh, when I find that discomfort, that means growth is going to happen. And by not allowing that discomfort in early ages, we take away that, which is a beautiful gift, is to learn that, oh, discomfort means growth. Discomfort means learning something. A new door is going to open.
And I remember specific examples in figure skating where it was incredibly uncomfortable. And they, if it was today, in today's age, parents would be suing over some of the stuff, that the training that they did with us. And my parents, had their own boundaries as to what, one of the things, I'll give you an example, with pairs figure skating, the male's role, for me, the boy's role was to make us look good and protect us. And if they didn't do so, for example, they were goofing off and that put us in harm's way, the coach, one of the lead coach, would look at them, or if they, just weren't respectful of us, of the system, and us too, but mostly it was the boys. Unfortunately, they took the flack. There was a lot of pressure put on them. It was go run the stadium and do 100 laps. And my dad had said to me, if you ever do something, we will discuss it. But if you get told you need to go run the 100 laps, he's like, you call me, because that will not be happening. Because he knew that would break me. He would, like, physically put me in a bad situation. But they would let me be in these tough situations. They would put me on a bus some early hour in the morning, and I'd be with the rest of the skating team going off to, hundreds of kilometers away from my parents at the age of 9, and expected to manage myself, manage my spending, make sure I was eating, show up at the rink on time, be ready, make sure that, like, everything that, for all intents and purposes, I can't handle. Show up, get ready, get on the ice, perform. I was 9.
Yeah, that is wild to me that you're 9. When I
Yeah.
think of my own 7-year-old, and I'm like, what? In a couple of years, they're not going to really be doing that. But if you could help to summarize this back for us, because I think you've given us so many kind of teasers into the Surefire method, into your
Mm.
upcoming book. Um, can you help sort of draw our parallels of our discussions on certainty, certitude,
Mhm.
and talk to me a little bit more about your method for anyone listening that's like, oh, Karley sounds like the coach I want to connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking. Okay. So where we need to start is a topic we haven't talked about, but effectively through writing the book on the method that I built, I discovered that there's a missing system in business, and that is the system of alignment. So we hear people say, well, you need to align your people. You need to align your people with your values. You need to align your company with like companies who share your values, who believe in your vision. And so I built the system. I uncovered that this missing system of alignment. Well, the first piece of alignment is alignment with self
Mhm.
and knowing what your non-negotiable core beliefs and truths are. So what are my values and guiding principles? Why am I doing this? Whether it be a career path, the thing that your mom's saying, why are you always taking on, these great challenges? So that can be career path, that can be the next part of your education, that can be why am I starting this? Why am I leaving a perfectly good engineering or healthcare job to go start my own thing? Right? So knowing the why, Simon Sinek's start with why behind it, understanding your values, understanding the vision for what it is that you want to create or achieve, and then knowing how you want to show up. So, how you want to show up and how you want your company to show up. Because as a visionary founder, the company, for you to stay motivated and driven by that curiosity, that purpose, it needs to align with you. Otherwise, you will disconnect. That's a whole other topic. But you need to know and understand yourself to be able to create the container of your business. And sometimes that
Mhm.
involves a business partner. So, what are our non negotiable beliefs and truths? So, that sets the foundational tools for what are we doing? How are we going to show up? And how do we make decisions? And how do we behave? So, that ripples out from the visionary founder or founding team. And that's how you attract great team members that align and believe what you believe. And they're excited about that same vision. And then moving beyond that, well, then who is it that we want to serve? And this is where it gets into, I talked about the intrinsic tools that we build, and then they slowly morph to extrinsic tools from a communication, storytelling, attraction, magnetizing standpoint is, well, who are the right clients for us? Who are the right strategic partners for us in order for us to build and create what we want to? So you have that cheering squad, that, but even deeper, that supports the support network to build that, because we can't do it on our own. And then we talk about, well, why choose us over the competition? What makes us unique? So getting into unique values, it's not values, sorry, getting into our unique value proposition and being able to tie all of that together with a promise and a story. So what I initially was building was a better branding system, because all those tools, some would argue some of those are business tools and they're strategic tools for business. But if those don't meld with who you are and what you do in the liver, you've got a disjointed system, a misaligned system.
Mhm.
So I was looking for a better way to build a stronger brand, to build a better reputation, to build a stronger business. So you're attracting all the things, people that you need to succeed. And then I uncovered the alignment piece, which is if we're not all aligned in the pursuit, be it a team, be it a company team, staff, we're all going to be misaligned in trying to achieve it. So the
Mhm.
Surefire method brings that ability to align everyone through where are we headed, why are we here, what are we doing, and how are we going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So for the owner, the certitude comes from getting that out of themselves, making it accessible to the team, and having everyone align around it to use those as a set of tools to create that business alignment.
I never thought I would be interested in business. I never thought I would have any draw to it. And hearing you speak, and slowly through my own journey of discovering the business world, I realized how many principles from education, from mental health, psychology, we are brought into this world. Like I hear you describing building the resilience of a founder, but also building the resilience of a business, which is a concept that never really crossed my mind.
Well, the one piece in the middle of that is building the resilience of their team.
And a team.
Mm-hmm. And that's the fascinating thing to me about business is we treat it like an intangible object, but it is a community. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it needs to come from the inside out. It needs to come from that place of certitude. Otherwise, people like marketers and folks who work with data and sales are just going to be throwing certainty signals at you to go, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. Like the proof is all here in front of you. Well, the proof was all there in front of me before I started the Grand Canyon. I mean, I could easily have lulled myself into a conviction of, but if I didn't feel it, if I didn't know it, well, that almost spells certain death, if I'm going to be dramatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every little water hole or every little pathway seems like maybe like that signal becomes maybe that is the direction I should be going. Maybe this isn't worth my while. Maybe I shouldn't actually believe in myself. Mm-hmm.
I remember before I fully committed to going the pathway of entrepreneurship, I was flirting with, being in it, but having one foot into a part-time job. And I was looking for other jobs in the paper at the time, go back that far. But I was looking at job postings and my business coach going, at some point, you cannot have a foot in both. You have to commit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right? Like you can keep taking that leads you back to the parking lot, but you're never going to get to the top of the ascent.
Mm-hmm. You have to have that certitude and you have to have that belief in yourself.
And it doesn't come all at once. You have to build it up. Mm-hmm. So maybe one day you get to the first trailhead and you're like, okay, there's my out because I'm not feeling it today. And then the next day you go and you're like, oh, okay, I feel stronger because I've done this a couple of times. And you go a little bit farther and you go a little bit farther and you keep, passing the doors and you get there. But it's iterative.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think you've just sold me and a lot of other people on reading your book.
Amazing.
That being said, we will link you in our show notes. Mm-hmm. Do you want to say out loud the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to find me, I operate primarily on so Karley Cunningham, Karley spelled Karley, and Cunningham the way everybody else spells it. I do have a Substack page where I'm releasing, I call it sidebar content that I don't go deep into.
What's a Substack? I don't know.
It's a Substack. Think Medium. It's another platform. It's a platform for creators and writers and the reason I chose it was simply because I couldn't be bothered to have to put it all together and then pull it into a newsletter. It just automatically sends it out. So if you subscribe to my Substack, then you will get the updates from me, which I'm releasing early content, side content, tools, helpful tips and advice that will help you build this. And it gives you some insight into the Surefire method. So
thank you.
I can send you that link and then people don't have to do anything.
And we will have it below.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on here today, Karley. I really appreciate your time and
Been a really insightful conversation for me as well. So amazing.
Thank you. Thanks, listeners, for joining in again. And we look forward to sharing another episode with you in 2 weeks.